You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could. This voice of mine change the world. Welcome to Mornings with Marvel, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. Good morning to each and every one of you. It is May 1st. 2025. And as the saying goes, nothing changes, but everything changes at once. We have lots and lots of news to cover. Good morning to all of you. I see you there. We are going to talk about the news, some news, and then we're going to have our Love It segment with Cherie Syfax at 6:45, something like that. So there's a lot to cover today. The first thing that I wanted to do, though, is to make you aware of something that happened yesterday. The Nation wrote this piece. Trump's newest executive order unleashes the cops and flirts with martial law. The new order effectively allows police to get away with murder, and that's just the beginning. Ellie Mistel wrote this piece. Holding police officers accountable when they commit crimes or violate the constitutional rights of those they're allegedly here to serve and protect is one of the most difficult things to do in law. The police are protected by powerful, well funded, and well lawyered unions. They are protected by the judicial doctrine of qualified immunity, which prevents them from being personally and sued for monetary damages when they damage or destroy properties or lives. They are protected by prosecutors and district attorneys who work who work alongside them and are often reluctant to charge them with crimes. And then, even when the police officers are charged with crimes, they're often protected by law, sympathetic juries who give the cops a pass when they brutalize or harass unharmed citizens. Unarmed citizens. The entire system is designed to help cops get away with crime. Well, however, now Donald Trump has issued an executive order that will make it even harder to hold cops accountable and flirts blatantly with martial law named dystopian strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. This new order purports to unleash high impact local police forces, protect and defend law enforcement officers wrongly accused and abused by state or local officials, and surge resources to officers in need. The aggressive language in the order could be cribbed from any military police state in the annals of history, and that's clearly the kind of polity that Trump would like to create and lead. The order instructs the Secretary of Defense to put down the bottle long enough to determine how military and national security assets, trainings, non lethal capabilities, and personnel can most effectively be utilized to prevent crime. It also instructs the Department of Homeland Security to advance the objective of this order. So, what does that mean in plain English? In plain English, it means that the President of the United States is using local law enforcement to carry out his mission, and it is frightening to a lot of people. That means people are being arrested and locked up with impunity. Police officers have immunity in more ways than we can even begin to imagine, and it's only going to get more interesting from here. So, I try to find uh, good news in the middle of all of this, and so it's getting harder and harder every day. And I am now starting to see finally people discussing that our shelves are getting empty. We're about to go into a recession. That all these things are happening, and since really for a long time before November, but especially since November, we've been having conversations with you here about stocking up. Making sure that you have all the things that you need, that the avian flu, the bird flu is spreading, measles is spreading. There are all these things. There's a confluence of things that are going on at once that's going to impact us. I don't like to be the bearer of bad news, but thousands of us, hundreds of thousands of us are going to die. There's also a conversation taking place that there is another a pandemic upon us, and the people are trying to warn us. The World Health Organization is trying to warn us that whatever this thing is, It's bad that people are going to go back into wearing their masks, whatever. Some folks like myself never stop wearing our masks, depending on where I am and, who I am with. It is, I think now the thing that we can do is figure out how to put ourselves in spaces where we find our tribe. I keep saying this. I've said this since God knows how long. I said, you're going to have to find the tribe, the people that you can talk to, the people that you can count on. I have a tribe here that I talk to all the time. They're dropping off seeds at my door. So I've been planting and planting and planting. I find that planting is a therapeutic way to release the stress from the brain. And so when I get off the air, if I don't have another client, for a few hours, I literally go into my backyard or go into my garden up front and I begin to plant. And so my friends who are planting, we're going to swap crops. So potatoes, carrots, onions, that kind of stuff. I've also figured out ways people have been running into me by myself. I literally get in my car and I go find someplace quiet and I go have lunch by myself. No conversation, no noise, no getting into anything other than to just find a little bit of peace, a little bit of respite. And it has helped. It has helped immensely. And so I'm asking you, whatever that is for you, if it's a cup of tea, if it's just going to take a 10-minute nap, those 10-minute naps are the best. My body won't allow me to do it, but those 10-minute naps when I can are simply the best. Do that for yourselves. Try and figure out, if something is toxic or, if you're around certain people that all they do is talk about folks and, did you hear, blah, 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 blah. Just extricate yourselves from them. This is not the time for the susu, as we would say. It's not the time to be denigrating and destroying people. Speaking of denigrating and destroying, there was a city council hearing for budgetary concerns, and so the Community College of Philadelphia was in a budget hearing on Tuesday, and they got their what's his name, Epps and the brand new interim president showed up and began talking about extolling the wonderful things about the Community College of Philadelphia and all they had accomplished in the last year. Graduation is up, enrollment is up. They have a thing with the Navy that is the only thing that's going on in the country right now. And as he was talking and talking, Councilmember Cindy Bass says, I need to ask the $1 million question. If all these wonderful things are going on at CCP and it was at the behest of Dr. Generals, why did you let Dr. Generals go? Because it seems like he's the shiny apple that's in all of this that allowed all of this to happen. And Mr. Harold Epps said, all that glitters isn't gold. And I have to tell you, people continue to talk about. They're like, wait, what? You said that in a public hearing? So that's going on. The Philadelphia Inquirer writes the article about it. And then yesterday morning, near afternoon, another article came out that Dr. Guy Generals is suing the Community College of Philadelphia. And this is what he said, that there was cronyism, that Harold Epps used his power as the chair of the trustees and was asking him to hire his daughter, to hire his organization, the firm that he worked for, and they're now going to court. Now, how I know they're going to court? I got a call from Dr. General's lawyer. They're going to court, and so it is interesting what is now taking place. There are things that I'm aware of that I will not say here publicly, but I truly want you all to recognize, and I've said this over and again. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. I've said this. You all have heard me say it over and over and over and over again. And so now there's going to be a lot coming out about CCP, emails and things, that have been kept. And so we have to think through what is it that we're doing and how we're doing it, because when you try to destroy someone, when you try to destroy someone, particularly because you don't like them, when you look around, you'll find yourself in that hole yourself. And so that's all I'm going to say about this. For those of you who are aware, I immediately, when they let Dr. Generals go, within 5 minutes of getting off of that meeting, I was the first one that resigned from the foundation board. I was a foundation executive board member of the foundation board at CCP. So I can talk about it because I was there in the middle of it. I was there on April 3rd when I showed up to their meeting when they put Dr. General's contract on the agenda. I stood up and I said to them, I have been hearing rumors for the last almost a year about Dr. General's last fall. And I kept saying to them, I said, so why aren't we having a discussion about this? Why have we not been made aware? Why is this such a secret? Why is it such a secret? I said, there's no transparency here, right? And if there's something that Dr. Generals has done, make us aware. Crickets, nothing. But what I said to them was, and it's transcribed because I said it in an open meeting. I said, you have a leak on your board somewhere because somebody has been talking about this for a while that it got to my ears. And so when I resigned, Sue Snyder called me from the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I have much to add, other than I just felt that there was no transparency there. Shortly after I resigned, Dr. Ellen Jo Waller, who was the president of the foundation board, resigned. And I feel now, watching all of this unfold, that it was the best thing that we could have done. When it was all flailing out in the, we kept asking, Dr. Ellen Joe kept asking, can we find out what's going on here? We're the foundation board, we're the fundraising arm of this college. Can someone tell us what's going on here? We were treated like, well, we'll let you know when we need to let you know. And then when they had a meeting after they let Dr. Generals go and asked me to be a part of that meeting, what came out of it, what the reason was that they let Dr. Generals go, he had taken the college as far as he could take it, as far as they were concerned. And so because I felt that there was something else happening here, I just was like, yeah, I'm not going back to this. I'm not. As a foundation board member, we had to sign an agreement that we would donate certain thousands of dollars every year. Either we get it out of our own pockets or we raise the funds. And so now that money, and I love the children at Community College of Philadelphia and the staff and all they have been doing. But something doesn't feel right to me. So that money that I was taking and giving to the community college, I'll figure out another way to help the children singularly. But it's now going to Team Jamaica Bickle to help the athletes that are coming in from the Caribbean. I'm not going to stop donating. Children continues to remain really important to me and who I am as a person, as an individual. So when things don't feel right, because we've been getting now, I'm getting a lot of phone calls. Oh yeah, we could have told you such and such was the such and such and such and such. And I'm like, so you knew such and such was such and such. Why are you now sitting here having conversations behind closed doors? Why was such and such not addressed up until now? Hmm? So the best thing you can do, follow your unction. I followed mine, right? I wanted no parts of whatever I saw coming. And I am pretty intuitive. So I was like, I don't want no parts of this. And I rocked out. So here we go. We often, as human beings, and I've seen it happen time and again, it happened to me, targeted because I don't like you. I think you're too popular. I think you're this. I think you're that. Meanwhile, the work speaks for itself. So we have to be mindful about how we operate with people. Always, right? Sharice Syfax is going to be on shortly. Oh, um, so we'll have a conversation about that. There's also more news coming. I have to take a look. Good morning, Sandra Barton. Lena said, "I love how transparent and brutally honest you are." Through my conversations with all of you, I have said time and again, vulnerability and transparency and authenticity all locks in together. I don't always get it right. And when I don't get it right, I tell you I don't get it right. And I have apologized openly when I don't get it right. It is how we are as people. When we're hiding and saying, well, such and such and such and such, yet you allow the same foolishness to go on over and over and over again until somebody with guts until someone who has courage says, this is not right and we're not dealing with it. And people would respect us more if when we were wrong, we said, you know what? I did not. You know how many times I've been on the air and I've said, I was wrong. I remember tackling this man who called into the radio station who was Republican, and he was telling me something and I didn't agree with him. And I was like, whatever. And it was time for me to get off the air. When I got off the air, I went and did my research and found that the man was right. My black behind came back on the air and apologized to the man. He was listening. He called the station manager and he said, I had never seen anybody do anything like that. I am Republican. I'm assuming she's Democrat. And even when she was wrong, while she was wrong, she came back and apologized. When you treat people well, when trouble hits you, and trouble will hit all of us, they will remember and they'll come back and they'll support you. When you're subversive, when you treat people horribly, when you dismiss people out of turn simply because you can and you want to, when you are in trouble, nobody is going to come and help you. It is always how you make people feel that matters. Always. So even when you feel wronged, treat people with dignity and respect. It will give you, it is way long lasting, and it is a perfume that will follow you for the rest of your life. Lord have mercy. Good morning. Okay, all right. So I see all the comments here. I'm gonna let Cherie in. Laura, you can plant. So I planted carrots and potatoes in April, and now it's May. I'm going to plant some other things. I planted everything. They're all shooting up now. Beautiful. But make sure you put netting over them to protect them because you know the squirrels and everybody else wants to eat. Good morning. I see all of you here. Marguerite, Alexandra. Marguerite, I heard from our friend, so I'll be getting some stuff from him in the near future. All right, let me let Cherie Syfax in. Everything. They're all shooting up now. Beautiful. Put netting over them to protect them because you know the squirrels. You want to turn that off because I
Yeah,
can
I'm
hear it.
sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
All of you here, Marguerite, Alexandra. My voice. Oh my goodness. So let me
So you
introduce
okay? You
you.
got to come plan. I thought you said we had to
Oh
wait.
no, no, we're getting ready to do a plan thing. Hold on. I talked to one of my team members yesterday. I'm going to work with Farmer John so we can all come together and plant in one big place. Because I think if I put it out there, a lot of people are going to want to do it, right? So
I'm
let me
not worried about what a lot of people want to do. I come on here every Thursday morning. I'm talking about
about
my
wasting.
house. I'm
Oh, oh, you
not talking
asking for
about what
what you
everybody
want, huh?
do. I'm talking about my house.
Woo, you are hilarious. All right,
That's,
honey, we will
yes,
find your house.
yes.
Um,
Although Parmesan
excuse
is a
me.
wonderful thing, I'm not saying that it's and I wouldn't participate. I'm just saying what my the Cyfax needs are.
All right, we're getting ready to plan. We're getting ready to plan. Hold on one second. Let me introduce you to the people. Cherie Syfax is the co-owner of Booker's Restaurant and Bar in West Philadelphia. She's a wife, mother, podcast host, and entrepreneur. She believes in the passion of to showcase the magic of Black women and the beauty of Black love, and she seeks to demystify the stereotype that Black women can't have it all. She's living proof that a Black woman can and do it with style, class, and grace. Now, listen, my darling. It's the lovers segment. They're cracking up. They are cracking up. Cherie was like, all right, you can play with everybody else, but as for me and the Cyfax house, I need you to come over here. Let me ask you this, Cherie. What does this Sunday afternoon look like for you for
Like you
planting?
coming over planting.
Okay, then all right. After we get off the air, we'll have a conversation. Make sure you have your dirt, your trowel, and all the
Tell me
things.
what I need. Tell me what I
All
need. You
right,
know,
I'll
you're a
let you
good
know.
husband. Don't make sure I got everything I need.
Mm, you are hilarious. Okay, so this is the lovers segment. There's a couple things that I want to discuss, and you had something you wanted to talk about last week.
Yeah, I
Last,
did. You know, the brain is
oh,
not
it's
there.
gone.
I forgot. I'm sorry. It'll come. It'll come.
So, I saw an article about Malcolm Jenkins, from the guy that was the Philadelphia Eagles. He was
Pacific
safety
Eagle.
at the Philadelphia Eagles, and he talked about his divorce. He wrote a new book, um, And he talked about his divorce. His wife, after 6 years, said that she was going through a lot mentally in her head. She was trying to navigate leaving Louisiana, living here, and they ended up getting divorced.
Really? Oh wow.
Yes, they did in
She
2000.
just
They kept it quiet in
okay. Yeah, she
2019.
knows some
In,
people that I know, and she had opened like a little apothecary store or
yes,
some kind of store. And we were invited to their grand opening. Oh my
yeah. So they're divorced. And then in 2020, the Eagles released him and he became a free agent. He talked about how devastating it was and how it almost crippled him that he was no longer living in the house with his children,
mm,
and what that felt like, and that it was such a darkness. He said it was even worse than the divorce, worse than being let go, not being able to see his children. He said it was so hard.
mm-hmm,
And I want us to have a discussion about that. When relationships end, more than likely moms are the ones that end up with the babies, right?
mm-hmm,
It's a natural order of things on many levels. But oftentimes, men go through this thing where, men, when he wrote the piece, I saw it on social media, all the men started talking about the darkness. One man said, I thought I was the only one that was going through this. All
mm.
the men talked about the darkness of how they feel. The marriage is over. They feel horrible that the marriage is over. And they feel even more devastated that they can't see their children on, uh, you know, all the time, consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me to wondering how many brothers are going through this every single day. And how can we alleviate that? I had a conversation with a gentleman from a place called the Commission, where he's working with Black men who are devastated about losing their relationships. Now, I'm not talking about the brothers who don't show up, who don't acknowledge their children. I'm not talking about those brothers, but I'm talking about the ones who really want to remain a crucial part of their children's lives. And for whatever the reason, I don't think his wife is stopping him from seeing his children.
It's just that
That it's just that he's
he's
not
on a
no longer
different team,
there.
and so since he's on a different team, probably they're not uprooting the children because at this point in his career, he can become a journeyman. I'm sure.
He's retired. You know that, right?
Well, right, no, I'm just saying at that point. So it was 2020 when he went to
Right.
New Orleans. So,
Mm-hmm.
or I think he went to the Saints. I can't remember. I
Yes.
don't follow him that close,
Yes.
but it probably had more to do with when you're married. You more than likely will go ahead and follow him everywhere.
Right.
Now that they were not married, there's probably not this feeling or obligation of following him everywhere and uprooting the children because the children are probably a little bit older as
Mm-hmm.
well. So yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah. What do you think as women we can do differently, if anything, once the marriage is over and we're sharing custody of the children?
That's a challenge, especially for him and that type of person with
Mm-hmm.
that type of career, because
Mm-hmm.
he can be one place, he can get traded somewhere else. So how
Right.
much do you uproot your children? I think what is something that we might not think is our responsibility, but can offer is a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion. And, really understanding or helping our partners, now our co-parents, understand that we understand what they're going through. And if the finances, if it makes financial sense, how can we make moves to make sure that when possible the children are able to have some type of significant engagement and interaction in person with that parent. So whether that's okay, we have a week off here, we have a weekend here and things like that. And I think a lot of time what my understanding of what a lot of men go through is the loneliness. So if there's a way that we can address the loneliness, and again through that compassion, through that empathy, so that they don't think that they are alone
Mm-hmm.
and we're all in this together, then you may have a slightly different feeling on the male's part or the person
Mm-hmm.
who's not the primary parent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting place to be in. Um, there's FaceTime. There's phone calls. Call your daddy before you go to sleep. call your daddy before you go to school. Let him know, or call your father when you get home from school and let him know that you are okay. Let him know what you did in school today
Mm-hmm.
so that dad can feel like every day, while they're not there physically, that
They're part
every day,
of
right, right.
the
And then
the
dad
life.
can tell you, what he's up to, and open the doors for a relationship so that when the children are going through something, dad will be one of the first people they'll pick up the phone and call. Um, Alexandra said he stated not waking up in the same house with his daughters was devastating. It is. I remember I was read that and the tears just started streaming down my face because I could feel his energy. And so you all, if you've been voyeurs in my life for as long as I have been on the air, because until I got into media, most people knew absolutely nothing about me, but I've been very transparent about saying that, when I got divorced, babies were a part of that divorce. And so, dad would call and say, I want to such and such. Okay. And there were many weekends when I didn't have my children. Many, many, many,
Mhm.
many. And at first I was like, oh my God, I don't have my babies. And I was like, oh my God, I got some free time. And I could do what I need to do. And because they didn't say this to me, um, in the beginning, the children were, they felt like they had both parents on some level. What they felt like they could see mom and dad. I put them in leadership programs, to work with other men, etc. So they had a strong vibrational wave around them. My father is incredibly important to them. They had uncles. One joined Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity after going to a like they had a cachet of men. I was very um intentional about making sure that they had strong leadership around them on all levels, even when dad had to travel, whatever. And when they got older and they got to 18, and it was time for the child support to stop, let me be clear. I got the call. I know child support is ending. I want to thank you. And that's the other part. I would get thank you for raising the children in such a way. I cried every time it happened. And then I got the call that says, I know child support is over, but I'm going to help you pay for college. And years later, when I asked, it was, you didn't fight me about getting extra child support. You didn't fight me about I got to see my children. You didn't fight me about any of those things. And my
Now, the only
reward.
thing I would say about that, though, is at that point the children are grown, so he's not doing that for you. He's doing that for them. He's doing that for his children. So he,
Absolutely, but
you know,
but
he
also
could have
but
chose.
also was helpful to me, Cherie.
No,
Let's be
no, I
clear.
understand that. I
Let's be
understand.
clear, because a
Yeah,
lot of fathers, when their children get to 18, they cut off their child support and they're not paying for helping to pay for college. It's your place right now. I didn't have to go
right.
there, and so my children were able to go through college, and we were both paying. When one
Right.
wanted to travel abroad, we were both paying. So I want to acknowledge that,
Yeah.
because while the court does not say you have to, it is something that when the father chooses to stay entrenched, it's a good thing. When my son and daughter-in-law were going through something, my daughter-in-law got laid off. My current husband, my ex-husband, myself, his wife, his current wife, all four of us came together and said, all right, how are we going to do this? You do this, I'll do that. We're going to make sure they're okay. It is important that we have the kind of relationship, not because, I want to get back in your life or anything like that, but it's now about the children. It's about the children.
Well, so yes, and it sounds like in Malcolm's situation, there needs to be something about him as well. So yes, we've talked about there's those very positive co-parenting relationships, and that is important for the children. It sounds like in Malcolm's case, he has his own darkness or depression or feeling around being separated from his children or not having that ability to wake up with them. So then how does the partner who is the primary parent, how does that person help fill that role? Because it sounds like he wants to be a good father, so that's not going
And he
to.
is. I don't think
Yeah.
he's saying that he doesn't see his children.
No,
He's
no, right.
just saying
Exactly. So I'm
losing them.
saying that all the parenting pieces in, to me, his scenario isn't around them working together as parents. That to me seems like it's a no-brainer because he is an involved parent.
Hmm.
But how does one address the darkness that he feels, or maybe the depression that he feels, or sounds like that, because he's not with his children constantly? It sounds
Yes.
like they're going to co-parent pretty well because it seems
Yes.
like maybe the divorce wasn't, acrimonious or
Right.
whatever, but he's still feeling this loss.
So
And
for
so,
those, so for fathers who are on here, I know there are fathers, men who are on here who have gone through divorces. I've talked to more than a few. Tell us how you dealt with the darkness that you felt when you couldn't be in the same house with your children. Because I'm never going to be a father. She's never going to be a father, right?
mm,
And the other thing is, how about the fathers who raised their children on their own when mom
mhm,
walked away? And
mhm,
mom disappeared and say, I'm tired of raising children, because that has happened. We always like to put the ownership on just the men alone. What
mhm,
happens to the fathers who are left to raise their children with just minimal or no family support? How do we support them in that
mhm,
scenario?
mhm.
What
Yeah.
does that look like? you know
No, and I think that in those scenarios, I don't know a lot of single fathers, but I know a few. And Tracy has a person kind of in his mentor purview
Mhm.
and community. His family's very much there. In his particular situation, he married a woman. I think they had one or two children, and then she passed away, and she had maybe four children that he had when they got married, or that she had when they got married. And so now he's taking care of the two that they had together, and then the ones that he inherited, and or I don't know if he's officially adopted them or not, but so it's six children. And so it's like his community, his church community,
Mhm.
his work community, again, men in his life, mentors like, Tracy and things like that, just keep him connected to services, resources. He has a lot of family support. So that is happening a lot too, where the women
Mhm.
may pass away, or something happens and men are now taking care of their children.
Mhm.
So as us, we always talking about loving our community. That's where the community comes in and makes
Yeah.
sure that they know what programs are there, what funds are available, what resources are available. Can we even take the kids for an hour, you got to go get your hair cut, whatever.
Mhm.
Also, what I love about some things that they're doing here in Trenton, the barbershop, they're doing these barbershop conversations. So men are coming into these spaces and having real conversations. No women are allowed. It's just,
Mhm.
men are in there. You got kind of your OG elders like Tracy, and then you got younger guys that are coming in and really talking heart to heart and heartfelt on challenges that they have, whether it's relationship, whether it's raising their children or being there or showing up, whether
Mhm.
it's challenges in,
Mhm.
employment, just all those things. So there needs to be a lot more safe spaces created
Mhm.
for men to be able to be vulnerable and share. To your point, saying that when Malcolm posted that, people saying I thought I was the only
The only
one.
one,
A
yeah.
lot of times, men are feeling like they are the only one, and as a result, they don't feel comfortable in sharing. In addition to it, I think we're moving away from this a little bit, but back to kind of the men not being vulnerable, not showing their emotions, things like that makes you, not strong. I do think that we're having healthier conversations around
Mhm.
that, and I'm really happy about that because we needed to make that transition.
Mhm.
But when those in spaces of influence, a la Malcolm Jenkins, when they are having transparent moments and sharing those, that's huge. So
Mhm.
all those things are works in progress that we are I think we are evolving into and transitioning into, where we can be and are being more supportive of our male population. And in addition, since we do talk about love, women having a lot more capacity to forgive and to work with men more. I still see so much online spaces degrading, Black men, and every every podcast clip that can be misconstrued and taken out of context, and just
Mhm.
really degrading Black men. And Black men have made so much progress, they just really have. And just continuing to acknowledge that, and helping them know that they are seen, heard, loved, and supported. So I think in general, just from our community, just really, really showing up for our Black men like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Joanne says, Judge Judy said, love your children more than you dislike each other. Tamara said, my ex made sure he got the children every other week. I absolutely hated it, but had to be fair of the time. I also understood his need to be a dad and father. My children struggled with the back and forth. That's the other thing.
Hmm.
Lena says, I know my son went into a deep depression when him and his girl broke up and she took his daughter. Now they have 50-50 custody, so he's an integral part of her life. Monica says, I remember that overwhelming sadness for my now husband when that happened many years ago, him crying in my lap. It was really devastating. Oh, Jesus.
Hmm.
Tamara says, but they needed both of us. Absolutely. Thus says, I've seen some divorced couples who stay in the same house to keep from disturbing the children's patterns. I have a friend that did that. She stayed in the same house with her divorced husband. And what happened was, but for them, what they did was when he came in the house, she left for that weekend or for that week. When she was there, he left, right? But the children remained in the home, and the
Yeah,
parents just
I've
came
seen
and
different
spent time with them.
situations like that too. I
Yes,
have a
yes,
friend who didn't do that, but he bought a house on the same block where his son.
yep,
So they were always very close,
yeah,
and so it wasn't super disruptive.
mhm,
He could go to his dad's house just as easy as he can go to his mom's house.
mhm, mhm,
And so that was really good. And his son, they're really really close.
yeah,
So
yeah,
people are, making situations work. And I think, it speaks to Black men are present and they want to be present in their
mhm,
children's lives and they
mhm,
care and they love. And so reshaping this narrative around who Black men are and who Black fathers are, I think
mhm.
is very, very important for us to do.
Yeah. Joanne says children will miss the dad being around, but they're resilient and will appreciate all the time dads reach out and do as much as they can. So let me share this with you, Joanne. After having conversations with my own children, even with all the time spent with dad, the children still feel like they missed some things, that dad
Mhm.
wasn't there for some of their games. Dad
Mhm.
wasn't. So eh, eh, before we get, I've said this 1,000 times, when you meet somebody and you Google eyeing them, before you lay down and copulate with them, please do a little bit of research.
Mhm.
It is
Mhm.
not luck or the lack thereof. It is our decisions that we make that have us ending up in the scenarios that we're in. And while we will do our best, sometimes, with despite our best efforts, relationships do not work. And
Mhm.
so you want to make sure that the person that you, because I remember, once you have the baby, that person is in your life for the rest of your life, whether you
Mhm.
see them every day or not, because you still share children with them. So it's important. Tamara says,
And
we,
that and the lack thereof. There are a lot of absent fathers, but mothers are, they have the burden of the rearing the children, and then at some point they may have the responsibility of filling an emotional hole, or at least helping their children fill an emotional hole that wasn't there. So even if the person isn't there, and
yes.
absent, their absence is going to potentially be impactful.
Hmm. Tamara says, we later talked about it, and he told me it was the most difficult time of his life. At times, it almost made me go back. Wow. Monica says this was one of the reasons why I was determined to blend our family in such a way that our children felt thorough love from all parents. And I agree with that, Monica. Blending a family is not an easy thing to do. Not at all. Not even. Listen, because there's somebody's going to be, you should have stayed with my mama, or, my daddy was the best thing, and you're not the person that I want, to be in my father's life. Children have to work through that process. But when you give it a few years and do your work, and it will blend, right? It'll blend right on through. One of our children, just did not like the idea that we were married and had a good time. Today, he is like, listen, I don't know what I would do without you and dad. I don't know what I would, we have to work through it. You have to set your boundaries. The respect has to be there, but you must continue to love them. You can't not love them because that is a child of your husband or the child of your wife. So you got to figure out how to navigate around that despite our feelings. Sometimes for us, we understand we can talk it through with other people, but we have to work it out because you want your marriage to be as not happy so much, but as what's the word I'm searching for, Cherie? As even keeled as possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not, trust me, not easy. I've had the
Um,
conversation with y'all. Sharia's had the conversation. It's not an easy thing, but you got to try to blend as much as you possibly can. And for us, my husband and I, 10 years in, to see that this one particular child is like, look, how's Andrea doing? How is, what can I do? Is she all right? Da 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 da. Dropped a Mother's Day card at our door, and I almost fainted. Like they gotta let them work through what it is that they're going through, and we make sure that whatever we do for one child, we do for all of them. So it is what it is. Alexandra says, speak, mother. My father remarried, and because my stepmother worked for the city, he tried to get arrears dismissed because we were 28 and 24. The judge says, pay in full or our payment plan. Pick one. I understood what he meant. After the divorce, it was traumatic not to wake up with my father in the house. I was 8 years old. Tamara says, I remember feeling some pain and darkness when they went to his house every other week. Not seeing them every day was hard. Yeah, in the beginning I did too. And I was like, yeah, all right, go on. Y'all go enjoy. Because I knew they were safe. Joanne said, it's better to see your children and be happy than together in a house of unhappiness. I agree with that too. Marguerite says, the thing about telling the children to make the connection is that often the children don't want to, the hassle or stress. Many things the mother wants to keep them away. Mm. Mm. But that depends on the relationship that the children had with the parents. Ah, there's another part of this story, right? Melina says, my coworker and her ex live in the same apartment complex for that reason too. Uh, thus says, can we share father programs and groups in the city? All right, I'll have to look that up. I'll ask my producer to give us some programs. The Queen of
mhm.
Money. There's an organization named Daddy University. Joel Austin. Yes, 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 yes. Um, Nina says my mother used to tell us he don't always have to be my husband, but he will always be your dad. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes, 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 yes.
I love that.
Um, Monica says, "Oh, it was so hard, but I can say it was so worth it." Yep, it is. It absolutely is. Joanne says, "I'd rather have a dad have quality time with his children. Being in the same house doesn't guarantee that they'll be a better or present parent." Hell, there's another part of it. Viola says, "I lived both of these scenarios in my life growing up." Joel is your brother. That's my tailgate brother. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Joel has been at it for a while. He's doing really, really well. The Fatherhood Foundation. Look up the Fatherhood Foundation. Chloe Isabel Francis says the first thing is you can't enter a relationship as a parent without some kind of consent from the children unless you're willing to lose the child. Say more. The child doesn't get to say who the parent enters a relationship with.
Mm-mm.
That's going down a rabbit hole, sir. Because
Mhm.
it'll be like the blind leading the blind, and the relationship, the person would never be able to have a relationship because the child would always be in there going, nope, nope, can't do, can't do. Mm-mm. They still have to be allowed to be adults in this scenario. Felicia says, when my husband and I separated, I was willing to let my sons live with him. I understood that I couldn't teach a boy how to be a man. Mm, mm,
Mhm.
mm. Yes, honey. It's been interesting. It's been an interesting time. You all have got to see Joel and the Fatherhood Foundation. He does amazing work. Uh, uh, David said, "Oh yes, they do." Oh, David, we're about to get into it now. What do you mean? Oh yes, they do, sir. Viola says, I visited my father's family as soon as I was old enough to travel on public transportation. Sometimes I didn't see my father. And to everybody's point, sometimes dad lives in the house and the scenario is not good, right? There's just things that, so let's just get it straight. There are no perfect relationships.
Mm-mm.
The father is not going to be perfect. The mother's not going to be perfect. I guarantee you, if you have children, when they become adults, they're going to say something like, I remember when you did such and such and such and such, and I didn't like it. And I'm like, wait, what? Ah. David says, when you choose to have children, you bring a permanent truth into the world. We keep thinking they have no part of the relationship, but they're one of the biggest reasons for divorce. What do you think, Cherie? Do you think
Now that I
children
don't.
should be, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The biggest reason for divorce I've heard is finances. So I don't
Yeah,
know
it's not the children, not the children.
about that. And there can
Yeah,
be challenging
yes.
scenarios with the children. Absolutely, don't get me wrong on that. But data wise, that doesn't bear out. I'm obviously older. My children are much older. They didn't have to
Mhm.
co-sign for Tracy. One, they don't live here,
Right.
but two, that was my man, and so whatever the issues
Mhm.
were, they would have had to work through them. We would have worked through them.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I can't see, and it sounds like even you guys had some positive situations with your children, and then maybe some more that challenging, but you guys didn't allow that to,
We did
um,
not.
yeah, to disturb your moving forward or prevent
Mhm.
you guys from moving forward. So I think that children can be considerations. I think we have to be careful when we are allowing children to make a lot of decisions for us because they are children, and children can be manipulative, and children can maybe want their parents back together. I mean, children can have all types of motives that are not necessarily the most healthy. And as a result, I would think that children can have a can have some input, but to
But
have
they
a
don't
say,
get to make the final
they don't
decision
get to
at
make the final
all.
decision. No,
Absolutely.
no.
Absolutely. Um uh, David said the truth is your child will always be your child. Your husband or wife may change. But again, as adults, we get to have some autonomy in who we choose as a mate now. I was dating my current husband for 6 months before my children met him.
Hmm.
And when they did, he sat down. Uh, he sat down with them and had conversation. They loved him. And before he asked me to marry him, he talked to my children, right? And let them know. And my oldest son said one of the reasons why he felt comfortable moving away to go work in another state, thousands of miles away, was that he knew my husband was going to take very good care of me.
Hmm.
So, but again, that again is us as adults choosing someone who we know would be a good fit in our families. We don't just go, well, I didn't. We don't just go, oh my God, I'm just going to date him because I love him and his butt is cute and I just think there's none of that. It was literally the core values of this man that I was dating, that I really wanted to make sure he was somebody that was good for not just his children, but my own. And my husband said the same thing. The first day he met me, I was talking about my children at a conference. And he said, the way I described my children and talked about them, let him know that he wanted to get to know me better. People watch us. This is not just about, I'm getting into this relationship. I want somebody to do this for me and do that for me. And I don't care what you say as a child. If you are a cognitive thinking adult, when you enter a relationship, you think about your children anyway. You just don't allow your children to make the final decision about what you want to do. And if it doesn't work, them children will say to you, see, I done told you, this is what I saw. But you, as adults, we have to make our choices on our own.
Yeah.
Depends on
I
our
mean,
core values.
that worked out, and that was a good scenario.
Mhm.
You had one child, it sounds like, and I know I've met him before, who wasn't on board. And what if you would allow that
Right.
opinion or his position to stop you from moving forward?
Mhm.
So yes, I think children can have a say, and I think that it's a responsibility of the parent and the new relationship to embrace the children. But if
Mhm.
the children choose to not allow themselves to be embraced,
Mhm.
then yeah, I'm not going to stay single because you want me to be back with your dad, or you want
Right. Yeah,
all
that,
my
yeah.
time, or all the selfish things that children can go through.
Mhm.
And while I agree, your children will always be your children, your spouse can change, you still, as an adult, you want companionship. We are wired for
Mhm.
companionship. So when we think
Mhm.
that we're in a good
Mhm.
partnership relationship, then we should
Yeah.
be able to move forward with that.
Monica says, honey, I have been on both sides from broken car windows and flat tires to sharing birthday parties and picking up report cards all together. I'm telling you, it's the adults.
Mm-hmm,
Viola
it
says,
is.
it is. Viola says, I'm friendly with all of my father's other children. I'm the oldest of seven. Alexandra says, at the Queen of Money, remember when we held meetings at 52nd Street? Why? All right. Did an amazing job raising him. Uh, Laverne says, yes, he's awesome. I love his daddy daughter dance. Yes, my dad and I went a couple of years ago. David said, your husband did that right, 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even my father respects and loves my husband. You just see the respect on his face. When he came to visit right after mommy died, and he went home, he looked at me, he said, I watched your husband the entire time I was here. He said, that man you did not want or need anything that he didn't get for you. He made sure you had the better car. He made sure he made sure that physically and mentally you were well. He understood what it was to take. He said, I left your house knowing that you had a good mate. I left your house feeling like when I close my eyes, he's going to take care of you. And, that's a big thing for a father to say because fathers watch and pay attention. Um, Joan says sometimes parents stay together, which may not be the best environment. John says sometimes parents stay together, which may not be the best environment. I agree with that because I've seen all kinds of crazy things. David said your husband understood that he needed the children's buy-in and he worked for it. He did. He absolutely, and they love him. Listen, my son was talking to me a couple months ago. He was calling my husband every day. I need your advice on this. All the things he would talk to me about. I need your advice on this. I need your advice on that. And my husband would say, talking to your son, talking to our son. And I'd laugh and say, keep on talking to him. I ain't speaking to him right now. But what we do, we work as a team. We work as a team. Joanne says, I knew she who always berated her ex to her children. Wow. The same ex she had previously had glowing things to say about the same man. I had to butt in and say, you picked him, good or bad. He's their father. David said, family units are not about yourself, they're about the unit. When you have a tribe, you can't just insert someone into it and say deal. People may say no dice. Uh, uh, then it says, your husband is top notch. Men dating women today with children must keep these things in mind. So I'm assuming this is my parents and other brothers helped. We were proud of. She's talking about her brother, and the children then have every right to drop you. Okay, David is feeling. You're feeling very strongly about this, David.
Yeah. Does David have
Viola says, "Huh?
does David have children?
No, no."
No.
Laverne says, I remember after my mom got married, my dad would fight to see me and would not be successful. My aunt and grandparents had to pick me up, so I didn't see him a lot. My stepfather was why. Wow. David says, so when the children say no dice and they walk and you are then later on upset, understand you did that. See the under
Yeah, but I
see the
guess if you have a good, children can be upset for a myriad of reasons that, you know, all should be addressed,
Mhm.
but should not, at some point, your children are going to leave you. So you've not gone into a relationship with someone that the children didn't like for them to turn around and fly, because you're preparing them to move on in life.
Right.
And so if your children didn't like Mr., they're
Mm.
now gone and in other states and married,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you could be single and lonely.
Yeah.
I'm not understanding why it's all sacrifice for children. I've not had anyone
Well,
have that.
but this is, I think I hit the clue with him. He says when your children are adults, that may change, but as children, they're your number one priority. So you're saying that when they're small, younger, not yet adults, that this is an issue.
Yeah,
I'm
yes and
telling
no.
you.
I mean, I think for me, I'm my number one priority, and then my children, because and then as a result, they come from me. But my mental stability, my emotional happiness, my spiritual, physical, all those things, I have to be my number one priority. And if someone
Mhm.
comes into my life who complements that, I have to be mindful of my children. Absolutely. And I dated when my children were young. I had to be mindful of them for sure. But I could not sacrifice all and would not and was not willing to sacrifice everything for them. Now, yes, do you have conversations? Yes, do you have whatever? And fortunately, even though not every person that I dated was a successful relationship, they had some pretty solid or decent, relationships with my children. But that aside, even if they didn't, there's times and points where, unfortunately, if the relationship doesn't work with their parent, you are going to be back out on the market, and you do have to date wisely. But your children, I wouldn't give my children that much power to be the final say. I have to be the final say on relationship.
Yeah. And in my case, I chose not to date for a long, long time. So much so that my sons were, Mama, you gay? I had to laugh when they said, because I mean, I wouldn't have, even if I went on an occasional date, they just never met anybody. I
Mm-hmm.
did not feel that my children, because I didn't know if this thing was going to work. So I wasn't introducing them to folks that it may or may not have worked, right? Um,
Right. I mean,
Uh,
I didn't introduce anyone to my children until it was a substantive
yeah,
relationship that I felt had some depth and was
right,
serious. And yeah, so I wasn't
yeah,
willy nilly just bringing people. You can date without your children being aware of that.
yeah.
So once something became more permanent or more substantive, um, we were able to, we became more of a unit together. But yeah, I mean, and some worked and longer term and some didn't.
David said, but these parents who think they can choose a new family member without buying in find themselves at nursing home Shady Pines. He's so
But yeah, hey, and I don't believe I have dated anyone that my parent kids have hated, but definitely people that they were like, and we've had
hmm
conversations about that.
yeah.
But if they don't come to Shady Pines, oh well, I don't work hard, so I don't make it where Shady.
David said,
All
I
right.
don't have children because I'm not ready to be the pelican feeding his young from his own breast. Parenthood should not be entered into purposefully if one's central focus is on themselves. Nakia says, my mother passed at 45. My father never dated till we were all out of the house and grown. It's personal
It's totally perfect.
preferences. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's totally
David says, and see, even if you were responsible with your children and it's clear they were your priority, the idea that women have to give up their happiness until the children are grown is ancient and patriarchal.
right. That's why the children
Uh,
choose. Exactly.
David said, Andrea, had your children come to you and said, no, dice, not him, what would you have done? But see, so here's the thing for me, David. I was very mindful about who I was dating, and I knew my children would love him. Again, core values. I knew what I wanted, what
Mhm.
it would look like, should look like in my life. I wasn't picking up lottie dottie or anybody, and so I needed to find somebody who loved their own children, who loved their mama, who was, those were the things that I was looking for.
Mhm.
That was gainfully employed. I didn't ask for him to be a millionaire, to be 6'5" and all that other thing, but somebody who cared about family.
Mhm.
Um, Laverne said it's really a tough decision to make when they are young. It depends on I don't know what. Viola said, I thank God for marrying a good man, and all of my children are his. This was very important to me. I had to always remind them that he was their dad and not mine. Laverne says, my son didn't like discipline. I struggle now thinking his life is because of who I married. Ooh, ooh. Ooh, that says a lot. Joanne says, how do you feel about men who marry someone else and treat your children great, but ignore their other children by someone else? I think that is the suckiest thing a man can do. You get into another marriage, you're treating that woman and their children right. I see
Yeah.
it happen a lot, but
I
you don't
wouldn't
look
allow.
for your children.
I wouldn't allow it. I wouldn't allow it
That's insane.
because how you treat your other children tells me a lot about who you are. And you do have women that are super happy that the husband prioritizes their children while they neglect
Ignored. Yes, that's
their
stinking
their biological
thinking.
children. And I would not allow that. I wouldn't be
Woo.
with. Yeah.
Marguerite says, say it, Cherie, after God, I am my number one priority. David said, it's not just women, it's men too. Ooh, baby. Fathers should be making just as much as a sacrifice for their children as mothers do. Someone
Mhm.
over here says, Oswald, you missed it. Donette says, another challenge is when a parent is in prison. How do you, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Cheese and crackers. Okay, we always get into these conversations and they go down a whole rabbit hole, and we only have a couple of minutes left. So, should we tell them how they can find you? And then we get off the air, we'll talk about my coming to your home to plant.
Okay. So, they can always find us at Booker's Restaurant and Bar at 5021 Baltimore Avenue. If you don't have Mother's Day plans yet, we have a few spots, but not many, of course. As we all know, Mother's Day is such a big day for us honoring our mothers. So, we're having a pre Mother's Day show. It's a dinner and a show at the Bayou, which is really, really nice. And we're actually getting ready to remodel the Bayou. So, we're really
Oh,
excited about that project. Yeah.
okay,
So, 5021 Baltimore Avenue. We are
okay,
open daily from 10 to 10.
okay. Mr. Sanders, if you're listening, usually I say I don't want to do anything for Mother's Day. I think I'd like to go to dinner. Yeah, can you make
Ah,
that happen? You know, No, we'll work it through. Sheree, give me about 20 minutes after I get off the air to pick up the phone and call me, and we'll talk about the what you need for Sunday. I'm so appreciative that every year you get on, every year, every week you get on here and we have honest conversations. We may not always agree, folk may not always agree with us, but these conversations these conversations, because we're speaking from our own lens, right? These conversations
Because
are
David want us to
authentic.
wear a scarlet letter if we if we got kids.
I'm about to knock over my green screen. Oh my God.
He wants us to have a chastity belt if we got kids. No, sir. No, sir.
Oh my God.
But I love it.
This episode of Mornings with Mofa is officially over. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you. I'll see you. I suspect we'll be talking about this next week too. Bye, everybody. Bye bye.